Did you know that you might be dooming your novel without even realizing it? This video is about 15 flaws that will doom most novels, and authors don't even know that they're committing these mistakes. So, like, subscribe, share, tell me what you think about what I'm going to be saying in the comments, and stick around, because I'm betting even you, with all of your vast knowledge of writing books, make some of these mistakes. Flaw number 1. No conflict, no stakes. Okay? The reason why this is a big problem is that if you don't make the reader care, they're not going to keep reading. You have got to give them a reason to want to keep going. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that your character or characters have some kind of stakes in the conflict. There has to be something that makes them want to keep going. That applies to both the character and the reader. Flaw 2. The beginning is too slow. Okay? Some people don't mind a slow start, but a lot of people are going to get bored. You know, if you try to spend 50 pages establishing what the status quo is, people are going to get bored. You're going to lose them. The solution is that you need to start with something, not right on the first page necessarily, although that can work, the James Bond method of right into the action, but you need something to hook them in, the reader. You need something to make them go, oh, okay, I want to find out what happens next. Okay. If you spend 20, 30, 40, 50 pages where nothing really happens, they're going to start wondering where the story is. When is this going to actually start? They're going to get bored. So, hook them in, make them want to see what happens next. Flaw 3. Shocks for the sake of shocks. Now, you might have an idea of a particular series of books that was turned into a successful TV series that I might be having in mind here, or simply something along the lines of Saw, or other really gory horror series of movies. The problem is that if you just keep trying to shock your reader over and over and over and over again, they are going to become numb to it. It no longer becomes shocking, it's just something that you're doing to try and basically manipulate your reader, and most people don't really like that. So you want to be careful about extreme plot twists, violence, sudden deaths, anything that comes across as feeling like you are just trying to shock the reader without any real reason, without trying to earn it first, without any real payoff. Okay? And the solution to this is simply don't do it. Okay? If you're going to do something to try to shock people in your story, you need to build to it. It needs to serve the plot, and it needs to feel earned. It should not feel like you're just doing it for the sake of shocking them. Flaw number 4. Characters have no clear motives. This one is kind of your standard hero journey problem, but it can show up in other stories as well. It's the problem of, if a character doesn't have any clear reason for what they're doing, the reader is going to notice, and they're going to ask, why is this character doing this thing? Okay? They need to have a motive. Your characters need to have some kind of motive. It doesn't have to be a good motive. It can be a deeply flawed, dangerous, stupid motive. It can even be as simple as because they felt like it. But then that needs to fit the character. If it's the kind of character that does something incredibly bizarre or dangerous just because they felt like trying to do it, then that's okay. It fits the character. But they need to have some kind of motivation. Flaw number 5, having a lack of focus. Okay? There's a few different ways this can manifest, a few different ways that you can really mess up with this issue. Another problem, or another way to look at it really, is adding too much. So, number 1, you do not want to throw in too many genres into your pot and start cooking. If you have too much going in, too many genres, too many different plots, too much stuff, your reader's going to get confused. They're not going to know where you're going with it, because a lot of times you won't really know where you're going with it. Too many plot lines, it can be a massive problem, especially for first novels, first stories. If you're doing a big series, you can add more plot lines and have subplots, but even that, I can't help but think of Wheel of Time. About halfway through the series, there were just so many different plot lines going on, it was so hard to keep track of anything. And if you do that in your first story, you don't even have an earlier parts of series to back up all these other plots, you're going to completely lose your readers very quickly. So, keep it focused. Most people want and expect an inciting incident at a beginning and an ending where things get resolved, one way or the other. And then the rest of the story is filling in what happens in between. Okay? 2 plot lines at most, and one of them should be a minor plot line. Say, a romantic plot line, subplot, which is fine. Again, you can run into problems here, though. If you are weaving a subplot through the story, you're good. If it fits naturally, you're good. What you don't want to do is just kind of brick wall your reader and go, this, romance. This, romance. You don't want to do that. It needs to flow through naturally. Alright, another way that this can be a problem is suddenly introducing new elements, new genres even, that weren't in the story previously. Let's say you're doing some kind of space exploration story, and it's mostly action, adventure, exploration type story, and then suddenly, like 2/3 of the way or more through the novel, it becomes alien. You're doing Star Trek or Star Wars, and suddenly it becomes alien. Well, that's kind of whiplash for the reader. You start introducing those things much earlier. That's the fix for that. Another big problem here is research dumping, which is basically you completely kill all the momentum of the story because you did a bunch of research on something and now you're going to tell your reader about it. And you're going to take up a whole bunch of time in your story to no longer be telling a story. You're info dumping because you did a bunch of research and you want to use it for something. No, research is to make your story better. It's an underlying thing that you've done to increase the story's realism or the science, whatever the research was for. You make your story better that way, but you never want to research dump. Okay? Again, you're losing focus. Stay focused on the story. Flaw number 6. Characters that feel thin. Stereotypes, trope-based characters that feel almost like you created them from a checklist even. They don't have enough substance. Okay? Now, let's consider a movie character. Han Solo. Keeping in mind that books are different than movies, obviously. With a movie, you have a character bringing them to life. The people can see it. It helps. It takes us a long way. There's a lot less time in a movie, so you have to do more for a novel. For when you're writing a story, you have to paint a picture for your reader with your words. But I still think that Han Solo is a good case study for this because if you think about it, especially in the first Star Wars movie, you don't really know much about him. All you really know is that he's a smuggler, he's in trouble with somebody called Jabba the Hutt, he needs money, and he's kind of a charming, rascally, roguish type character. So there's not really a huge amount of detail there. But you have very strong motivation, very memorable personality. If you have those two things, you have a character that's going to take you a long way. You add some extra details, and you're going to, you're about there. Again, movies are different. Books need more, generally. But you can get a long way with just a really good personality and really strong motivation. Flaw number 7. Characters that have no voice of their own. It's all your voice, basically. Okay? If every single character sounds the same, from 90-year-old wise mentor character to a 10-year-old child, not only are your readers going to have a hard time knowing who the hell is speaking at any time, usually you'll inform them in some way through the text, but the best character dialogue is, even if you do not tell a reader who is speaking, they can kind of figure it out. And you do this by giving every character a speech pattern, words that they like to use. A good example from anime would be, say, Naruto, who often finishes sentences with a date bio, or bio, however it's pronounced. I'm not date, which I don't think is even actual words necessarily. It's more just like a "yay, let's go" kind of thing. Okay, an example from my own book, the Serverheim, where heroes never log out, is that I decided one of the characters was going to be, it's an isekai, so the characters are all from our world into Serverheim, which is an afterlife world. And one of the characters I decided was going to be a Japanese gamer that died and ended up in Serverheim. So she often will finish sentences with the Dayo, which I think it's Dayo, which is just kind of a, sort of thing. That's basically what it means, is that sort of thing. So even if I don't tell you, the reader, when she's speaking, just from some of the mannerisms in her speech and often ending sentences with Dayo, you know who it is. And it doesn't have to be super elaborate. You can just have, again, inflections of voice, word usage, vocabulary. Make every character stand out and sound like an actual person speaking. Flaw number 8. Too much world building info dumping. Why it's a problem is similar to some of the others in the list. You are brickwalling your reader. They don't care about all of the world building you did. They don't care if you have 20 pages worth of information about the history of the Elven Kingdom where the story is taking place. Okay? And if you try to dump like 10 pages or 20 pages of history as a lesson onto your reader, it's overwhelming and it's boring. They don't care. I'm sorry, but that's simply the fact of the matter. World building is something that you do to enhance the story that you're trying to tell. You might be enamored of what you came up with, but your readers are not going to be. It's something that you can pepper through an entire story if it matters and if it comes up, but just dumping a great big chunk of text on them about something they don't really care about, as something just because you did all that work on your world building, you're brickwalling your reader. They don't care. They aren't going to want to keep reading. And the solution is simple. You integrate your world building through dialogue, through revelation of the world around. Okay? And you only need to give them the minimum. You just need to give them enough. Because the more you throw at them, the less they're going to remember it, for one thing. And again, they just don't really care. Most readers simply do not care. Give them enough to serve the story. That is my number one tip for everything. Serve the story first, not your ego. Law number 9. Too many surprises. Okay. If you keep trying to fling a bunch of different surprises at your reader over and over and over again, much like shocks for the sake of shocks, you end up with a situation where the reader is no longer being surprised, or even worse, they start getting confused. Again, too many surprises. It has the problem of kind of stalling out the narrative. Okay? If you keep, especially in something like a murder mystery, anytime when there's like a mystery and you keep acting like, oh, it's solved now, oh, no, it's not. Oh, it's solved now, no, it's not. It's like you're in a car, okay, and you can't, you're not going anywhere. You're just, you're doing that in the car. You don't want to put your reader in a mental version of that sensation of a car that's kind of lurching forward. Okay, so the solution is to limit big surprises to basically your midpoint in the end of the novel. You can maybe have one right at the end of the beginning of the book, like an act 1 or 2 ending. I usually use a 5-act structure, but really, to me, it's okay to have a midpoint surprise and a surprise at the end. Maybe with some little tiny ones peppered throughout the rest, but nothing huge. Okay? Red herrings are fine in mysteries. You could classify a red herring as a surprise, but even those you want to not use too much. Okay? A little bit. Just a little bit. Flaw number 10. No payoff. Okay? You've put too many mysterious things into the story and you don't know how to pay them all off at the end. Or even worse, you're planning to try to do it in a sequel. See, the problem with doing something like that is that there's no guarantee you're going to write the sequel or that anybody's going to want to read it. So if you're going to introduce mysteries in a novel, you need to pay them off in that novel. Okay? If you introduce something towards the very end that leads into another story, that's fine. But it should not have anything to do with the actual story you are working on for that short story, novella, novel, whatever the size of it is. The mysteries that you establish within that story, for that story, need to be paid off by the end. Okay? Why it's a problem? The reader feels cheated. If you introduce these mysterious elements and then they don't go anywhere, you don't explain anything, the reader's going, well, what the hell? I read this thing and there was these cool mysterious things and nothing got paid off. What's going on? It makes them feel like they wasted their time. So the solution here is pretty simple. If you're going to introduce a mystery, know where it's going and what the payoff is going to be before you actually write it into the story. It needs to be a complete mystery, not just something mysterious you're tossing in for the hell of it. Okay? Flaw number 11. Characters that have no backstory at all. Now, this one applies mostly to protagonists and side characters that are going to get some decent metaphorical screen time in your story. If it's just somebody that has a couple of lines of dialogue, they don't need backstory. You know, side characters and very minor characters are always exceptions to a lot of these rules when it comes to characters. But any character that's going to have any reasonable amount of time in the story should have a backstory. The reason it's important is that if you don't give them any kind of backstory, there will come times when the reader is reading this character and is wondering, who the hell is this person? Where did they come from? If it feels like you just pluck them out of the ether and drop them into your story, then that's not good. Have you ever been reading a story and there was a character that got some significant time in the story, but it felt like they were just there for that story? It was almost like they had no history, and it even feels like they don't really have a future either. They're just kind of there. That's a problem. And the simple fix is to give them a little bit of backstory. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of backstory, and obviously you don't need to dump it all on the reader at any point, but giving them a little bit of backstory, and even if it's just small things, it can be scars, the way they react to certain things, maybe some things that they say, or, you know, like an older character might mention back in the war. You can wander into stereo. Sure, why not? You can wander into stereotype or archetype territory by doing stuff like that, but for the even sometimes those little things, it can add a lot to a character. So flaw number 12. This one goes hand in hand with number 11, but it's kind of going in the opposite direction. Too much backstory or explanation. And not just for characters either. Okay? But generally, backstory, we're talking about the characters. And the reason it's a problem, it's exposition dumping. Okay? It stops the story dead in its tracks. You don't need a 5-page flashback explaining why a character hates dogs, okay? It totally kills any momentum in the story. Dead. It just, brick wall, done, okay? You only need to add backstory when it matters to the story. Or you can do it through little bits of dialogue and things, as I mentioned in the characters who have no backstory. For example, the thing about a character who hates dogs. Okay, you could have a moment where maybe they have a shirt off or a sleeve rolled up and they see an arm and there's just a big nasty scar on the arm, and somebody goes, "Whoa, where'd you get that scar?" "Oh, when I was a kid I got bit by a big nasty dog and about took my arm off." Backstory established. Or could hear dogs barking in the distance, off in the distance, and the character, "Ugh, what's the matter?" "I hate dogs." "What do you mean you hate dogs? Nobody hates dogs." "I do. When I was a kid, I got bit real bad by one. Big nasty sucker. I I just don't like dogs. Again, backstory established. You don't need a lot, but you've now established something about that character. There you go. Flaw number 13. The dreaded number 13. Too many twists. This is similar to too many surprises and shock for the sake of shock, but it is a little bit different in that a surprise can be a lot of different things, whereas a twist generally is that you've set something up within your story and then you completely do a left turn or a 180 or whatever metaphor you want to use and twist. A lot of times stories will only have a twist ending, but some people try to overuse twists in the same way that some people try to overuse surprises, or in mysteries, too many red herrings. Okay? The reason it's a problem is that just like too many surprises gives you that lurching sensation, it creates a stalling effect. It creates fatigue in the reader. It sets up this issue where the reader starts to feel like nothing actually matters. Like, they could read 50 pages of your book, and if you keep doing twists, they're going to feel like if they read the next 50 pages, nothing that they've read is going to make a damn bit of... It's not going to matter, because you're just going to throw another twist at them that's going to invalidate practically everything that they've just read. So, it's not a good idea. Call it the M. Night Shyamalan syndrome, if you will, which can also fall into just always doing twist endings, okay? One or two, maybe, good, solid twists are okay. They can actually make or break the ending of a story sometimes. But it's far better to do less is more. Flaw number 14. Too many metaphors, similes, purple prose, basically. And you could also throw in their vocabulary. You don't have to treat people like they're idiots. Generally, readers have decent vocabulary. But I recall it's a sci-fi novel series. I don't remember the name of it right offhand. But it's about a guy who gets kidnapped by aliens and put in basically a zoo, and there's a talking dog or something in there. And the first book, he uses so many $3 words, or whatever you want to call them, big words. It's like, yeah, I know what the words mean. I have a really good vocabulary, but why is this guy talking like this? Especially because most of the time he's thinking it. Who the hell actually thinks in their own head like this? The books aren't bad. It's a decent sci-fi trilogy, but good grief, the vocabulary in the first book is atrocious. Bad. And then you have the issue of getting too flowery or too metaphorical, or using too many similes. It's like this. And the problem is that when you do that, the reader is paying more attention to the way you're writing than the story. And yeah, it's distracting. It can come across as hokey, cheesy, forced. So yeah, just be careful about the vocabulary you're using, especially for your characters. I mean, you don't want like a 12-year-old character using words like atrocious unless there's a good reason for it. So you have to be careful about your vocabulary and the way you're writing when it comes to using lots of metaphors, similes, and generally purple prose. Okay? And finally, flaw number 15. You're getting too close to your inspiration. Okay, It's okay to be inspired by other fiction. Everybody is. Anybody who claims that they weren't inspired by something is a liar. Okay? But if you don't move far enough away from your inspirations, it starts to feel like fan fiction or a copy. It makes you seem like a copycat. There's no originality. So, the best solution is to take inspiration from multiple sources, and instead of copying directly what the inspiration person, the writer, the movie, whatever your inspiration is, what they did, instead think about it and isolate what it is that you really like the most about it. Okay, let's use, say, Harry Potter, very popular, lots of copycats. Instead of setting your story at a magic school, what was it about Hogwarts and the environment, the characters there, what was it that you loved about that part of it? Okay? And then once you've figured that out, then you can take that and change it to something a bit more your own. Okay? Another way you can do this, it's a little bit more formulaic, but you can simply take your inspiration and then change 3 major fundamental things about it. Okay? If you're inspired by Harry Potter, make it sci-fi instead, and they're psychics. They're young kids, they're being sent to a school for young psychics. Okay? Now you've changed the genre, you've changed the setting, okay? You've changed the power that they're being trained in. So you've changed 3 major fundamental aspects of the story. You can go further, okay? The conflicts and the power structures and any other major elements of the story. Alright, so to summarize all of this, I think the biggest takeaway would be that the key to a good novel is, first, everything should serve the story. Make sure your characters feel like real people. And balance. Okay? Enough backstory, not too much. Enough information about the world, not too much. If you're going to have twists, make them big and make them mean something. Don't just throw them in for the sake of it. Same for shocks and surprises. Okay? Everything in balance. And always, always do what serves the story first. Okay? And I would like you to try, maybe take a short story you've been working on or written and go through and see if you're committing any of these flaws, and then kind of rework the story a bit based on this list. And finally, which of these flaws is the hardest for you to avoid committing? Okay, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you on the next one.